Monopolies in power are determined to spend billions of dollars on desalination plants, contrary to the advice of many well-respected water experts.
The state governments own their water monopolies, they're the only shareholders.
The alternative is out there, and it was driven home in Adelaide recently when we were bucketed from above big time. Roads flooded and drains full of rainwater. And how much did our thirsty city keep? Virtually none. Most flowed into St Vincent's Gulf.
The water that runs out to sea from the city of Adelaide is probably 1.5 to 2 times the volume of water that Adelaide uses in any year.
Dr Peter Coombs, one of Australia's leading authorities on water management, reckons desal plants are simply not needed.
To go to a very expensive, greenhouse gas intensive end-of-line solution because it props up water monopolies is probably an inappropriate answer to Australia's water strategies.
Dr Coombs reckons, despite the spin, no Australian city should have a water shortage.
We certainly don't need to build any more desal plants.
And then there's the money. Quite apart from the high cost of the plant itself, desal projects have a track record for generating big consulting fees. For example, Victoria's desal plant has been a bonanza for consultants. The biggest winner is pocketing almost $28 million for planning and environmental advice. In South Australia, the consultants, rebadged as contractors, meaning their dealings are confidential, are sure to be doing very nicely too.
If Mr Rand and Mr Foley want to spend these tens of millions of dollars on consultants or contractors, they should be transparent, they should be accountable.
Former Treasurer and current Chair of the State Parliament Budget and Finance Committee, Rob Lucas, says if you compare the consultant costs for the proposed new hospital, you get an idea of how much the government is spending on desal advice.
It's my estimate that the total consultants and contractor costs for the desal plant will be around about $130 to $140 million.
The money issue aside, desal seems to have more problems than solutions.
The reality is the desal energy consumption is quite high, very high, of the order of 5,000 kilowatt hours per megalitre of water, which is very high.
Just take a look at Queensland's desalination plant on the Gold Coast. 16 major faults detected, forcing the operators to order a higher grade of steel, which won't be installed until the middle of next year.
The brine and the concentrated salt and contaminant load is highly corrosive to metals, concrete, all engineering materials.
Corrosion there, and cracks are appearing in the government's plan here.
This is so energy consuming, the desalination plant, and this is the wrong way to go into the future.
Senior lecturer in oceanography at Flinders University, Professor Jochen Kampf, doesn't mince his words.
Yes, it will fail.
Mainly, he says, because of our dodge tides in the Gulf. Desal discharge of concentrated toxic brine will settle on the sea floor with nowhere to go.
This will kill marine life, and also it will not, if this happens, and I believe that this will happen, it will not comply with existing environmental legislation, which limits the impact zone to be less than 100 meters from the discharge.
Meanwhile, to keep the South Australian public on side, the state government spent big taxpayer dollars setting up a stand at this year's Royal Show to promote the desal plant.
The costs of the show stand are at least in 6 figures.
But wait, there's more.
Electricity prices will double. Desalination plant is one part of that. Water prices will double. Who can afford this?
And even constructing these things leaves an enormous carbon footprint. Remember that black balloon ad? State governments telling us that we are the offenders.
Each one of these balloons represents 50 grams of greenhouse gas. The average home produces over 200,000 balloons every year.
200,000 balloons indeed. Environmental scientist Rob Gell, speaking at a water forum this year, says Victoria's desal plant emissions will make us look like environmental angels.
Simply the construction phase of the desalination plant would produce 22 billion black balloons. Then annual operation is in order of 30 billion black balloons.
The state government is investing in desalination and stormwater harvesting. We currently have 7 stormwater projects across Adelaide before the Commonwealth for funding consideration. We have stringent environmental standards for the Adelaide Desal plant. The state government will not compromise the environment in the Gulf St Vincent.
People will look at these observations, will look at marine impacts. If it doesn't work, it will not be good for the government. And me, if I were a politician, I couldn't live with that responsibility, knowing that they were warned about potential impacts. It's not that nobody knew.
Well, now to new reports, children as young as 7 are seeking help for conditions such as depression and eating disorders. Some child protection workers and psychologists lay the blame squarely at a modern world which seemingly bombards our kids with adult messages. So